before they reach a breaking point.
What do you mean, Black Lives Matter? Black lives haven't mattered in this country since Negroes stopped working for free at the end of slavery. You ought to be talking about Black Guns Matter and start your own NRA. Call it the Negro Revolutionary Amalgamation.
Don't miss this compelling historic radio event, The Return. When Tavis Smiley converses with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Tuesday, February 28th, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580.
What we're gonna do right here is go back.
KBLA Talk 1580 is turning up the frequency in Black History Month. Be on the lookout for some familiar faces as the Metro K-Line is currently wrapped in KBLA Talk 1580. Make sure you visit the KBLA Talk 1580 online store, now open for business with all kinds of fresh merch. Don't miss a single episode of The Motivator, Les Brown's month-long radio residency. You've got to be hungry. Weekdays at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. And afternoons just got real. Real people, real talk, real issues, real solutions. Be sure to check out Ariva Martin in real time on your way home weekday afternoons from 4 to 6. Turning up the frequency all Black History Month long. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
First things first.
First is the DU General Money B. I'ma put you up on the schedule 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not 2 and 7 years. We got a lot to talk about, so much to pedal through. Unapologetically progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the mess. We're your ancestors' favorite radio station. First Black on Talk Radio, left side of the nation. Me and Dominique DiPrima go way back. Tavis Smiley making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. We're hosted Black and Brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. Maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movement. So we tune in. The first things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique DiPrima. Go sis, go sis, go sis.
First things first.
KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DiPrima. This show is First Things First, and my first thing each and every day of the year, giving thanks, giving praises, asking for blessings from the Most High, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders, and getting it started. We got a lot to talk about today and every day. Try to have a little fun around here as well, because it is a Friday. It's supposed to be fun, right? even if you're doing serious things, we hope to have fun doing them on a Friday. Serious things, marching, protesting, reading, building, community building, all that can be done in the spirit of fun. That's what we hope to bring. Hour one, you know how we do it. Hour one, it's the left coast. It's the local. It's whatever's happening near you. Of course, it always has national and international implications. Hour two, we focus on the national and beyond, and we do freestyle phones. Hour three is a deep dive with a person or persons of interest. And by the way, what do freestyle phones mean? Freestyle phones mean you can change the subject. You can call and talk about whatever is on your heart. Do some fellowship, do a rant, all of that is possible, and you're very welcome and invited to do all of the above. And today we'll be hearing from a musical artist in hour three, a music editor, a conductor, and multi-instrumentalist who just came back from Dubai with Queen Bee. So he'll have some interesting perspective, news, and also, I think, really good insights about careers in the music industry, business, beyond just being in front of the mic. That sounds like a lot of unexpected and interesting conversation on your Friday. But you know who's with me this Friday morning. My partner in politics, on and off the radio. He's the president of ES Advisors Group, which is a public affairs consultancy with over 20 years of experience implementing public policy, advising electoral campaigns, and directing community-based and business growth initiatives. He's also a contributor on Fox Soul TV and, wait for it, KBLA Talk 1580. Ed Sanders, good morning. Good morning and welcome, Ed. Happy Friday.
Friday. Can't think of a better way to start the Friday than on First Things First.
Well, yeah, because it's always great to start my weekend talking stuff with you and tracking stuff with you. And I know you are on this water stuff. So I said to myself, when next time Ed gets on the show, we're going to talk about the reporting that we're hearing now that the Colorado River is in crisis and that Lake Mead, where all these, old bodies, probably mafia stories are being unveiled by the low levels of water, and Lake Powell, now scientists are saying even with all of the rain we've been having, which is significant, those reservoirs are not likely to fill up in our lifetime.
Right. It's it's fascinating. I've been looking at this issue the last couple months, and the honest truth of this issue, it is the biggest question facing those on the West Coast and the southwest part of the United States is how are we going to deal and how are we going to supply enough water to a number of people that are in the region. For years we've sort of taken for granted the resource, and we've been burning into reserves. More people have been moving into the region, and now we're at a point where, we've been taking more water out of the Colorado River than, is replenished every year by naturally through the snowpack, rain, snow and all of that. And now you've got questions on who is going to get the water, right? I think the federal government is asking the states along the river to come up with a plan that, at this point consists of significant cuts in the usage. But from there, it gets into a priority question on who should get it. Should it be California, Arizona, Nevada, that sort of thing? So these are all the policy decisions that are in front of people.
Yeah, and it's, I don't want to be Miss Doom and Gloom, but it's so easy to say, look, we're drenched with rain. I mean, we haven't had this much rain in a long time, and we're hearing that the snowpacks are at levels we haven't seen in years. So it feels like, hey, turn on the hose, take a long shower. But apparently that's not how it works. I mean, enough rain has to soak into the ground to fill up those aquifers, and then it has to start filling up the lake. So we would have to, it sounds like what scientists are saying is we would have to have Noah's Ark level rain to fill up those lakes, and it's probably not going to happen. So now we have to start looking at not just capturing rainwater, but different technologies and ways that we can continue to supply, because as I learned recently, it's so connected to housing, because if you can't show that you can provide water for the residents of a building, you cannot build it. So as we're talking about this extreme housing crisis in California and in other big cities, there's a water component to it too, which means we're going to have to get really serious about this technology, not just because of the drought, but because of the housing supply shortage.
You're nailing it. And, this is a region that has grown through the decades, right? California is north of, 42 million people, something like that. And we could probably remember when it was closer to 20 million people in California. The housing shortage is a crunch, born of people's desire to live on the West Coast. To your point, in order to meet that, you've also got to make sure that the first resource needed, meaning water, is available. And right now that's not a guarantee. and you've got to have the hookups, you've got to have the ability to, in some cases, move water to regions, and the technology and or the infrastructure needs to be in place to do that. And it's not always the case. I was surprised to find that there are about 1 million Californians that don't have access to clean water, that generally pump their water out of ground wells, and those ground wells are now dry. And so there's regions, even here in Southern California, where you really particularly can't build because there's not access to water.
Yeah. Talking with Ed Sanders and you, if you got something you want to bring up, air out, or just discover, uncover. 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. Stop. I got plenty of sleep last night for once, so I should be completely out of control today, and I invite you to join me in that out of controlness. 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. Do not give that girl 8 hours of sleep. She will be on one. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Hi, I'm Dominique DiPrima. You may think it's too early, but tax season is now. Whether you're filing individual or business taxes, there are benefits to filing your taxes. You could qualify for loans and grants, improve your credit profile, and get into compliance with the IRS. Who files early gets refunded early, and there are lots of legit ways to boost your tax refund in 2023. The tax professionals at Wealth Management Financial Advisors will find every credit and deduction you deserve so you get your largest possible refund. I'm not kidding. You could double your refund just by filing at Wealth Management Financial Advisors. Big chain tax filing companies use a one-size-fits-all formula that leaves money on the table. Don't wait until recession or procrastination take a bite out of your budget. Book an appointment now at wealthmanagementlb.com or by calling 562-427-8877. That's 562-427-8877. Visit wealthmanagementlb.com.
Hi, I'm Ariva Martin, and I'm the host of the new drive time show, Ariva Martin in Real Time, on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm also a mother and a child advocate, and when my son Marty was diagnosed with autism, I was devastated. I knew I had to do something, so I started the Special Needs Network, and for over 15 years, we have been helping families with children with autism. Now, through a new program called CORE, we can help you. We can help you take your career to the next level by training you to become an early childhood interventionist, working with children ages 0 to 3. The CORE program will pay you $25 an hour while you are in training, pay off $10,000 of your student loan debt, and help you find a good paying job. Call 323-291-7100 or visit snnla.org to learn how you can become a CORE fellow and take your career to the next level. Don't hesitate. Apply today.
Dancing crew, trip for two, nailed the final interview. Game with Doug, brand new mug. Come here, kid, give me a hug. The more you want to do, the more we want to do. New COVID-19 boosters designed for recent Omicron variants are now available. Learn about eligibility and schedule a free updated booster today at vaccines.gov. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
You know, we typically stick with local topics in hour one, Ed Sanders, but watching the outcomes of that massive, it's the earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria is kind of a wake-up call, I think, for anywhere that we would consider earthquake country, right? Because the death toll is so high. I think we're at what 70,000 now, if I'm not wrong. Going off the top of my head here, watching folks dig out of the rubble. The LA Times is reporting today that a common building flaw. No, it's 22,000. Okay, I think I went from 7,000 to 22,000. Still, that's a lot of people, and I know that in the course of history, more people have died. Up to 500,000 have died in an earthquake, but in modern times, this is pretty devastating, and it makes you think about the vulnerability. For me, it makes me think about the vulnerability that we have here. They say this. I'm not a construction expert, but non-ductile concrete construction. There's a lot of buildings like that with this concrete construction that hasn't been evaluated nor retrofit, and which could collapse in an earthquake. And I do think most of our buildings in the United States are more modern, better than what we see in Haiti and Syria and such. But the LA Times article is saying that these concrete frame buildings, a lot of them were built right after World War II, and a lot of them are along, the big boulevards in LA, and we could see similar devastation, which is not at all cheering.
Yeah, I mean, it has always been. First things first. Let's acknowledge and prayer for the lives lost in Turkey. I think the death toll is at 21,000 or so, as you said, but I think most folks expect it to continue to grow. And you look at those photos and the devastation of what happened is I've seen some of the videos on social media of buildings just collapsing. It just had to be a horrible experience. California has always dealt with that. San Francisco, Los Angeles have seen major earthquakes, and sort of the aftermath of that. I think, to your point, one of the reasons why we pay so much attention to planning issues and codes and making sure that housing stock is up to code is so that, an earthquake is not as devastating here. While I think there are some buildings that have flaws depending on when they were built, I would say that California in particular has probably the strongest buildings to resist a large-scale earthquake. Now, sometimes there's earthquakes there's just nothing you can do with, depending on where the fault is. But
yeah. But if you have an older building, especially a concrete building, I know it's probably super expensive, but it seems like it would be worth having it evaluated. They're pointing out that the veterans building on Sylmar, completely collapsed during the last major quake here, and after that Sylmar quake, those type of what non-flexible concrete, I don't know what makes concrete flexible, but they were banned, but they never really required them to update the old buildings. And according to scientists at USC, thousands of Angelenos live in those buildings or work in those buildings. So I hope that, is that a state issue? That would be a state issue, right? Where they would have to mandate the retrofitting or at least the evaluation of buildings.
Yeah, it seems like it brings a number of different issues in play, right? Insurance. Could you insure, a rental unit that was built, out of code or that doesn't live up to snuff? How do you, what do you do? Should the owner have to finance that? The upgrades. There's so many sort of policy implications of how you do it. Because in some ways people might say, well, housing isn't the best use of this property. I might take away the housing and do something else with it. But that's an interesting policy conversation that I imagine would start to be held.
All right, Ed Sanders, I follow you on Twitter, Edward M. Sanders, and you posted a story that I somehow flew under the radar for me, but it's really, really scary. In Mississippi, white representatives at the state level are voting to create a white-appointed court system for Jackson, Mississippi, which is the blackest city in America right now, and it is also the only major city in the country where the black population is growing rather than shrinking. So under Mayor Chokwe Lumumba, he's put policies in place that attract more black folks instead of driving us way out to the suburbs or wherever we think we can get a better deal, more for our money, better schools. And now the super majority, and see, this is what I'm always talking about when Republicans like to use that little talking point about Democrats control all the cities and why isn't everything fixed. So you've got a supermajority in the Mississippi House that voted to create a separate court system and an expanded police force for Jackson. How is that representative democracy? How is that even legal?
Yeah, it reeks of Jim Crow, right? To understand Mississippi, the Republican Party in Mississippi is largely white and controls the state legislature and the governor. The Democratic Party is mostly the black population in Mississippi, and it's more stark there than here. So just so that folks have that backdrop, Jackson is elected African American mayor, council, the police chief, and Jackson, I think is the capital of Mississippi. So there's also a Capitol Police Force. So what the legislature did, to your point, is start a new judicial district, but expand the powers of the Capitol Police Force, fund them to be the dominant police force in the region. And it looks like there is basically just a new I'm going to call it an overseer in place of the city that is the blackest city in America. And that, it should be front page news. I would implore the Biden administration to get involved with this. Merrick Garland should, this should be at the top of the list right now because, given Mississippi, given the history, given the zeal that you see with which the Republican Party has moved to do this, it's really life-threatening, to be honest. We've talked about police issues and, accountability with officers, shooting African Americans. That's what's being set up here with that expanded Capitol Police Force in Mississippi. But you've also we talked about water. You've also got this issue of water in Jackson, where they're struggling to deliver water to the residents of Jackson. And, I think that has a lot to do with this as well.
I mean, when I think of Jim Crow, I think of separate. I think of being discriminated against and being separate. This might be even worse than that because not only are you separate, we're going to totally control all of your politics and your policing, and you will have no say. It would be like if the state, if we had a Republican governor in California and they just decided no more LAPD, where at least the chief is appointed and overseen by the mayor and the police commission. Nope, we're going to appoint a Republican police chief and all Republican judges, and we're going to impose them on a Democratic city. It's crazy. Jackson Mayor Chokwe Lumumba called this plantation politics, and he said this bill reminds him of apartheid. It would in a city that's 80% black, it would allow 2 white judges to actually appoint their judges, which that's wow.
And the judges in the county where Jackson is steeped, you elect local judges. I mean, that's the big part about this, is that you elect your local judges, you vote for your local representatives, and the state legislature is moving to circumvent that. And that's the part of this that makes it so oppressive. And, Dominique, I'm sure you and I, we get asked all this, these questions all the time from, even some of our allies, what does oppression look like in America? Well, this is a clear example of what it looks like. You've removed people's ability to determine who should represent them, particularly in the judicial system, and that's dangerous.
And it should be noted that every other county in Mississippi elects their own judges and has their own police force. So this would be a special thing only for the 80% black city, and it's authored by a lawmaker who represents a majority white district way out in the sticks. That's like far, far away from Jackson. So it's really blatant. They're also doubling the funding for the police force so that this occupying army of cops will get $20 million to be overseers to this black city. It's not too late to stop it. I guess it's already been passed, but would still need to be signed by the governor, if I'm not mistaken. And so I know activists are trying to stop this, and I hope, as you say, Ed Sanders, that Merrick Garland takes note, because this is definitely a civil rights issue, and this is definitely, I can see a pattern that should this succeed in Mississippi, we could see apartheid-like, Jim Crow-like plantation politics being duplicated in other majority black cities. And that is a problem. We got news, traffic, and sports, and then more on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Our top story is out of Chicago, where a Lincoln Park culinary student who was shot during an armed robbery last year on Chicago's North Side is suing the city. African-American Dakota Early's attorneys argue the incident could have been prevented if Chicago police officers weren't hampered by the department's pursuit policy. They claim police called off the pursuit of a stolen BMW linked to the man charged in the shooting an hour before the attack. Early was seriously wounded and is left with ongoing medical issues. Food stamp cuts are less than 3 weeks away for more than 30 million Americans. 32 states are set to cut benefits on March the 1st. The cuts in SNAP are due to the end of the so-called emergency allotments, which bumped up benefits at the start of the pandemic. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Jackson Hewitt gets you your biggest tax refund guaranteed, plus a chance to double your refund or win weekly prizes with their Double Your Refund sweepstakes. File your taxes on the double. No purchase necessary. U.S. residents 18 or older who file a 2022 federal tax return. Ends 4/2/23.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers lost their third straight game. They lose by 9 at home to Milwaukee. A sore ankle kept LeBron James on the bench in street clothes. LeBron was honored before the game to celebrate his new status as the NBA's all-time scoring leader. None of the 5 players the Lakers acquired in trades this week were in the lineup last night. The Lakers expect to have them for Saturday's game at Golden State. Milwaukee is staying in town to play the Clippers tonight. Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes was voted NFL MVP. It's the second time Mahomes has won the award in his 6-year career. Philadelphia quarterback Jalen Hurts finished second in voting. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
This is Aaron at Original Taco Pete. Let us cater your Super Bowl party and future event. Call 323-348-4441 and visit us at 3272 West Slauson off Crenshaw.
The Millionaires Roundtable with Lynn Richardson is creating millionaires one family, one day, $1, one dime at a time. KBLA Talk 1580 will be celebrating Black History Month Wealth with Lynn Richardson live on Wednesday, February 22nd at the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon in Leimert Park. Come check out the space. This location has been a bank branch for over 44 years and is now a community center. It provides resources and education to help the community with money goals, home ownership, and entrepreneurship. You and a guest can win lunch with Lynn Richardson February 22nd. Go to KBLA1580.com or the KBLA 1580 mobile app today and register. See you there.
It's celebration season at Faithful Central Bible Church as we honor the legacy of our very own champion, Bishop Kenneth C. Ulmer, and 4 decades of pastoral service. On Sunday, February 19th at 9 a.m., join us for morning worship as Bishop Ulmer delivers his last sermon as senior pastor of the Family of Champions. Then, at 5 p.m. at the West Angeles Cathedral, we invite you to a citywide tribute concert featuring some of the biggest names in gospel music. Beverly Crawford, Israel Houghton, Miranda Curtis, Mary, Kathy Taylor, Crystal Rucker, Charles Jenkins, and other surprise guests. That's 5 p.m. at West Angeles Cathedral, February 19th. So let the praise begin, honoring the legacy of a champion, Bishop Kenneth C. Ulmer, and his 4 decades of pastoral service. For more information, visit faithfulcentral.com.
Fred Hines was an African-American blacksmith when he started at LADWP in 1968. After a long 30-year career of public service, he enjoyed the fruits of his labor in retirement. Today, Utility Executive Secretary LaTanya Bogan serves as the Retirement Board President, overseeing the retirement funds for more than 20,000 LADWP employees and retirees. She promotes the financial security of LADWP employees and their families. As LADWP celebrates Black History Month, they proudly highlight the excellent work and exemplary leadership of Black employees who work hard to serve you. Visit them online at joinladwp.com.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's much appreciated, and despite the fact that we are still working and protesting and moving to remove disgraced racist council member Kevin De Leon, I know you and I don't see eye to eye on that, Ed, all the time. But despite that, the city has been able to move forward with getting some things done in the council. And I don't think anyone's signing off on what he's done or that we think it's a great idea for him to be in the council. But some stuff has to get done, right?
Yeah, agreed. As always, I we're gonna pick our argument back up again.
Yeah, we're gonna keep arguing about this because it keeps it in the conversation.
Yeah. No, but to be clear, I think Kevin De Leon should step down and resign. I think we were arguing about whether or not the activists should have been as close in that kerfuffle they had a couple weeks back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you thought that he had a right to go ham on that guy, and I thought that he was, when you hit first, you are committing assault. But anyway, we don't have to relitigate that. But I'm glad you clarified that you do think the man should step down.
Oh, of course, and part of it, was the issue was that there were calls and protests to keep the council from actually convening while he was on council.
Right.
And the business of the city needs to take action. And I think you've seen the city council, particularly in this last week, take a number of key steps to move the city forward. I noticed that they are adopting the ordinance to allow for relocation assistance following, certain rent increases. I noticed
more than 10%. If your landlord jacks your rent up more than 10% and you can't afford to stay there anymore, they have to help you move.
Right, exactly, and they increased the amount of money that you pay to help people move. So, a good deterrent to raising rent. It's one of those interesting conversations, that we have around, really black property ownership, and I don't want to call it home ownership. There always are what we call the mom and pop, duplex or rental unit owners, and the cost of maintaining that as a business, and it gets harder and harder in Los Angeles. And I remember from my time working in the city of LA, hearing from that group about how relocation costs and other costs make it tough for them to keep those properties, and what you end up seeing are selling and sort of the regentrification issue taking a bigger hand. But in this way, with this motion, the end game is I think there are protections in place so that rent values don't go up sharply, and people can stay in their homes, especially coming out of COVID and the pandemic. So
yeah, and I think it's also a great example of why we need the council to function, even while we remain very serious and focused on either recalling De Leon or finding another way to get him out of there. And there's new requirements about what it takes to evict a person. You can't just kick someone out. You have to have a solid reason, and there's a list of reasons that work. So that, I think it's important because I'm really concerned now that I know the county has extended eviction protections until June, but some municipalities are moving forward, and I'm really concerned that we're going to have a massive new group of unhoused folks in over the summer as these protections wear off and people aren't able to work something out with their landlord, or landlords take aggressive measures to evict. So I think these protections are really timely, and I hope that they can help us from having a new wave of unhoused folks.
Yeah, and Dominique, I remember as the pandemic hit, you were one of the voices in the city, particularly with the show that you put forward. There was a weekly show that talked about, the issues around the pandemic. And, if you recall, the number of job loss numbers that, folks were concerned about. And, what we knew about the pandemic, it was that it was going to be a life-changing event for a lot of Americans, particularly around whether or not you would be able to work. It was just going to be a great disruption. We at the time thought that, the policy leaders took, valiant steps to protect people, to keep them in their home. We're now a couple of years past the pandemic, and to your point, as those protections start to either change, either they're codified or they're removed, you're going to still see a shakeout in the population. And hopefully, we can mitigate people having to move, people, losing the ability to stay in homes. But it is and has always been a difficult rental market in L.A., but I think now we're going to start to see how difficult it can be.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why the Just Cause, that's the name of it, the Just Cause Protections. We have El Negrito calling from L.A., and we were just having a discussion. El Negrito, people, if you translate it literally, it sounds bad, but it's actually often used as a term of endearment. Y'all know I'm bilingual. It's not the same as mayate. If someone calls you that, you might want to fight.
That's bad.
Anyway, I'm not sure why you call yourself that, but I'm pretty sure you're not using it to mean calling yourself the Ed word.
No, but we got to keep an eye on Mississippi now that I know about that. My God. You guys ever heard of Telluride Lake? Lake Telluride?
Yes. I think they call it Telluride Lake, but yeah, I've heard of it. Mm-hmm.
It's extinct. And at one point in time, it was the largest lake west of the Mississippi. And the Native Americans didn't suck it dry, but the Manifest Destiny folks came once they passed the Mississippi, and they sucked it dry. So Colorado, Lake Mead, and all that stuff, could it happen again?
Yeah, well, it's happening again. I mean, that's the problem. They're saying if they're saying it won't fill up in our lifetimes unless we have some kind of miraculous, literally a miracle, that means it is happening again. So yeah, I guess Lake Tulare is in the valley. It's in the San Joaquin Valley. San Joaquin Valley. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was the largest lake at one point in time west of the Mississippi.
And they call it a freshwater dry lake. What is that? It means it's a desert now.
It's sucked dry.
Yeah.
And I noticed along like these, like say Wilshire now, we're talking about the expanse of the higher rise buildings. I didn't think they were supposed to build along these subways and train lines. And they're shooting up all, almost high rises. And then right along Wilshire. And then Hollywood went crazy, and now they're building up all these tall buildings.
Yeah, but I think those modern ones are less problematic because they're going to be under strict earthquake building codes, although they could be problematic for other reasons like congestion or gentrification. And I'm hoping that some of these unused office buildings, because folks are not going back to work in the office like they were before the pandemic, and I don't know if it'll ever bounce back. So I'm hoping some of them are going to be able to be converted into housing. I know that's one of the things that our new mayor, Mayor Bass, is looking at, because some of those, I actually had a conversation with her about how some of those rules and regulations that have prevented that are not even state regulations. They're city policies that could be changed by the city in order to make room for more people to have places to live.
Well, she's on the ball, so Mayor Bass, she'll get it done. But I remember there was a time you couldn't build higher than the old courthouse downtown.
And you still can't do that, I think, in Santa Monica and other locations that have really, preserved the character of their cities that have strict regulations. Mr. Negrito, you can stay with me, or you can call me again another day.
I'm out the door, sis. I haven't called in a while. I will be calling more often.
I appreciate that. I'm glad you found us, and you are now officially part of our KBLA delegation. Ed Sanders has got...
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. And Ed Sanders has got something he can break down for us. I think it's important concerning mental health and libraries. That's next on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Star Andrews becomes the first black woman to win a medal at a U.S. figure skating championship since 1988, the year I was born. Maisha Kaiwa here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by Lendistry. After skating in the national championship program in January, figure skater Star Andrews became the first black woman in over 3 decades to win a medal at the U.S. Figure Skating Championship located in San Jose, California. Black Enterprise reports the 21-year-old finished 4th overall after completing the 2-day competition with a score of 188.24 and a free skate score of 119.27. I'm Maisha Kyle for KBLA 1580, and that's your K-Black Minute News.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today. Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today.
Tune in to More Than That with Gia Peppers live this Sunday at 4 p.m. on KBLA or wherever you listen to podcasts.
This episode of More Than That is brought to you by Chevrolet, helping HBCU students develop stories that make a difference. Chevrolet, find new roads.
Our Weekly Los Angeles is the largest audited black newspaper in the state of California, with a distribution of over 50,000 copies weekly. Pick up a copy every Thursday to get the latest news on African American communities of LA. You can also keep up with what's going on in Los Angeles and surrounding cities by going to www.ourweekly.com. The Our Weekly website is updated daily with the current news about us and for us. For your advertising needs, Our Weekly offers economical advertising packages to fit your budget. Feel free to call Our Weekly Los Angeles at 323-905-1300 or visit the website at www.ourweekly.com. Our Weekly Los Angeles, reporting news that matters to you.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
Talking about the work of the City Council, how they're moving forward in the renter protections. We need to dive deeper into that too, and we will in the days and weeks ahead, because we're going to look at, how some corporate landlords are using ways to get folks out and what your rights really are. Another project of the LA City Council has to do with the mental health contracts for libraries. Explain what that is, Ed Sanders.
Well, first it is an acknowledgement that the city libraries are viewed as places of refuge for people in mental distress. And what I think the council was responding to is library staff are a frontline interaction with people in distress, and they need help doing that. And we've had this conversation around sort of the LAPD, where you want to try to remove the police department from being sort of that first front line with some people that are in distress, because you don't need that to become fatal. That interaction shouldn't be fatal. And so what the council has authorized are therapy services and through a variety of different contracts, or a number of different contracts, where contractors will make themselves available to help library staff with people that are in mental distress. I really think it's a thoughtful, humane way to start the process. As a society, as a state, as a country, we've got to be more deliberate with how we deal with people with mental health issues. They're not some hidden, unseen population, but we've got to find ways to care for them, and this is a start.
Right, so it's investing public resources in having mental health available. It's training the staff, librarians and other library staff, what to do, the right way to respond if they have someone who's in a mental health crisis. It's $800,000 for now, but as you say, this could be part of an ongoing conversation or investment, because you're right. I mean, we shouldn't have cops providing mental health services that they're not trained to provide. And we definitely shouldn't have librarians in these situations where they don't have backup. Librarians can't call for backup, and they don't, they're not armed, not to say that they should be. But, for them to become almost like first responders for the mental health crisis with zero training is really unfair to the library staff.
It is. And it's an acknowledgement that, the facilities themselves are a draw. As you can imagine, it's quiet. It's, they're usually, in areas or, trees and sort of a little park space. So it's a bit of a haven for someone that's in distress in the street. But it's also where we want students to go after school, right? They're also places of learning. And so we want, an experience where we hope our children can be safe as well. So that's a big part of it as well.
And Karen Packard-Four, who's the head of the LA Library Experience Office, said that actually part of the goal of this is so that library staff don't call police when there's a mental health crisis, or they're less likely to have to call police because they're trained to de-escalate and handle the situation themselves. So again, it's part of connecting the dots, as you've said, part of getting the folks that are trained to deal with specific crises to be the responders to those types of crises.
That's right. I mean, look. When police respond, police are more concerned with protecting their individual lives. That's how police respond to issues. I've got to protect myself, and time and time again, we've seen that result in death, particularly for someone in distress. And so we can avoid that, and this is one way to try to do that.
And they're smart about it too. They're starting at Central Library, which I would imagine is the number one spot where we encounter these type of meltdowns or crises at the library. We're talking with Ed Sanders. We're talking with you if you want to join in, 800-920-1580. We're looking local on KBLA Talk 1580.
We may be LA's newest talk station, but when you're punching above your weight, it's not about whether you can throw a punch. Can you take a punch? We're unapologetically progressive, KBLA Talk 1580. And we don't black down. KBLA Talk 1580 would like to thank all of the businesses that tune into KBLA at work. We celebrate you, your calls to the station, and your overall support. To show our appreciation, we would like to treat your office to lunch for 10, sponsored by John O'Groats family-owned restaurant and johnogroats.us. Open the KBLA Talk 1580 app or log on to KBLA1580.com to submit your office to be selected for our Office of the Week. We know you're just like our staff, putting in many hard, smart working hours per week. We just want to say thank you, and we appreciate you. You and your staff deserve lunch on us. Enter your office to win lunch for 10 and be highlighted on KBLA Talk 1580 as our Office of the Week. Open the KBLA app or log on to KBLA1580.com to enter your office today to become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. Sponsored by John O'Groats family-owned restaurant and johnogroats.us. Become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. This has been a KBLA Talk 1580 community call to action. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with Kate Luzio, former banking executive and now owner of Luminary, who partnered with Chase for this tour. She makes it her business to build community for business owners.
Yes, so I was a banker for 20 years before I decided to become an entrepreneur. 7 of those years were actually at JP Morgan Chase. One of the biggest things that I had going into my entrepreneurial journey was a big background in banking.
So what advice are you giving business owners looking for financial backing today?
So Chase brings in so much knowledge and the opportunity to understand what financial tools are out there for business owners to build, grow, and scale their business. A lot of business owners will say, well, I need to get a loan immediately. Well, you wouldn't just lend money to your friend if you didn't know why they needed it. I tell every business owner, you need a business plan, you need financial projections, you need a banker. Because you have to start building a relationship with a banker so that they get comfortable with how you're going to build that business and so that they can eventually support you in different ways.
Makes sense. So visit the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon. Meet a banker today. Tell them about your business. I'm Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, we have our beef with the LA Times, but they also do some amazing work, especially around investigation on certain stories. And they've got a front page story today about the Exide recycling plant, which was a toxic cleanup site. It was supposed to be cleaned up. Now this investigation by the Times has found that it's really not cleaned up. which is crazy. It's a $750 million cleanup project. The Times says researchers at USC and Occidental College reported they tested surface soil from the yards of people who live there. 93 homes that were supposed to have been cleaned up, and 73 of them had at least one sample with lead concentrations that are well over what we consider what's considered acceptable according to California health standards. They found that there were other kinds of violations like dust in the air, that the state still hasn't offered a plan for cleaning up the expressways nearby. So, it raises so many questions about, how do we let these corporations, I'm always talking about with this with oil companies, how do we let these companies off the hook and just leave the residents, in actual health peril?
Yeah, I remember this. This is I haven't yet read that article, but how we deal with land that has been used for years as a company where there's toxic, sort of waste, and this is one big example of it. I thought they were made to clean it up, and from what it sounds like, the cleanup isn't, or at least isn't testing as though the cleanup is happening. It is a problem that we have in Southern California that, goes under the radar, right? There are all these old properties where once there were factories, maybe in the 20s, 30s, 40s, that weren't, safe with products and that sort of stuff. And with more and more people coming to the region, you find homes being built. I know this is an issue, even along the right-of-ways, the old railroad right-of-ways, even, down near Watts and whatnot. And so this one was very particular, though. This was a company in the city of Vernon, and Vernon was special because there's, 90 homes there, and they controlled the city council and kind of protected their oversight because they chose who lived in those homes and protected themselves through their own vote. So we'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, I keep an eye on it for sure. Ed Sanders, you can find him at Edward M. Sanders on Twitter, where he's recently been tweeting a lot more. Ed, as always, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Dominique. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's right. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Go somebody.
Go Black quarterbacks.
Go Black quarterbacks. Your phone calls are next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the